All these employees, they're interviewing us these days in that, the other podcast that I do in the HR and talent acquisition industry, they're like, oh my goodness, culture, go back 10, 15 years ago. Nobody even talked about culture as impacting the ability to acquire the right people, the right top performers. And now he says it's almost everything, right? It's almost everything. So I want to get to two more questions. They're the two most important questions I'm going to ask today. So here's the first one. What haven't we covered? Right? Our topic is dealing with all this chaos, right? And how do we turn that chaos into a sustainable revenue machine? Like, what do you want to have time to talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
I think we've touched on the human element a lot. I think we probably have to touch on appropriate expectations and budgeting. I think as part of turning a company into a revenue machine, I think that's critical, critical topic. I don't know. Anything else on your mind, Steve, that we haven't talked about yet? I'm trying to think as well, but
Yeah, I think you're right. The human element, right? The alignment, but how do we stay in alignment, right? Because if we work to get there, as humans, we are resistant to change. We just are, right? And so we want to live in a known environment, right? But in business, that's just not the case. It's just changing all the time. COVID pulled the rug out from all of us, right? AI is changing everything. The self-service B2B buyer journeys changing everything. So the norm is chaos and change. And so not only get in alignment, but how do we stay in alignment? Let's just say that we can get in alignment. How do we stay in alignment in that kind of an environment?
I think first it comes with accepting that change is constant, right? Like we have to accept that. That is true. It always has been true. That's not the rate of change has significantly increased, I believe, but change is the constant. That's at least in my lifetime, I've never seen it not change. It just changes a lot faster today. So I think in all of us talking about, why are things changing? What are alternatives that are possible for us as a company, us as a group? What are those possible alternative paths that we could take as we see these things as continuing to happen, right? Or with these pending changes, what are the possibilities? I think having open and honest conversations with people, that acknowledging that change is happening, acknowledging and discussing potential alternative paths that we could forge forward with, soliciting and being really open to conversation or input from the company as to, okay, what about this idea? Or what about this direction? I think all of that together is the key, right? You mentioned earlier, I'm a father of four, right? If I've had any success in life, hopefully it's raising good kids. That's the most important thing to me. And I think one of those things that I found is communication. And it comes back to bringing them together at a dinner table. We eat at a kitchen countertop a lot on bar stools because it's just easier than a dining room table. We're not formal like that. But having them come in and out and sometimes actively participating, but sometimes just listening to the conversation and having that on a regular basis is meaningful. And anyone who's ever raised teenagers, especially a teenage boy, I would say they don't communicate a lot. There's not a lot of words. It's a lot of grunting and a lot of like head down, right? But I think they're still taking in a lot of what's happening. And I think that same thing's true in a company. It's having regular sit downs, and I'm going to say sit down, but conversations about all that's going on. People want to know, people want to hear. And just as the rate of change has increased, the rate of communication has to increase too. It's no longer a monthly or quarterly town hall, right? It's like that was good when change was slower, but today change is constant and it's fast. So, how often do we need to communicate? As often as we can, quite frankly, like in a meaningful way too.
I've never met anybody inside an organization that said, stop, you're communicating too much. You're bringing me into the fold too much, right?
And that doesn't mean more email. More email is not the
No,
answer, right? Or another
no.
Slack channel or another this channel that no, 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 no. This means like real conversations throughout the organizations. I don't care how small or how big they are, which comes down to, again, being able to have people that are a part of it that you've attracted because your vibe is correct, because you've cared about them in the onboarding process and learned about them throughout the life of their career with you, it makes it a lot easier to keep those communication channels open.